What's going on, people? Welcome back to the United Stand. My name is Maud, and I have a press conference for you. So Amorim spoke about the game against Fulham on the weekend, but he's also spoke about a few other things, the goalkeeper situation. He spoke about certain players coming in and out of the team. But listen, before we even get into all of that, some big news has come out about the goalkeeping. I'm going to call it a dilemma, because it is a bit of a dilemma. We really do need a goalkeeper in, and United are actually still in for Lammens. Now, a lot of you probably seen this online earlier on Twitter or whatnot about Lammens. So I really want to touch onto that and let's discuss this topic. So the news has come out from Fabrizio, and it says Manchester United are still working on a deal to sign Senne Lammens. Talks are underway. Personal terms are almost agreed, and Man United are in active talks for the Belgian goalkeeper. Manchester United tried to anticipate more clubs from France, Italy, also Man City, but it's based on exits. Now, we've been talking about this goalkeeper for a while. We've been talking about this goalkeeper for probably a few months, if we're being honest. Probably since the season ended, we've been discussing about Manchester United potentially bringing in this young goalkeeper. Now, if you don't know anything about him, he's 23 years old. He plays for Royal Antwerp in the Belgian division. Belgian First Division, and look, he's a very good goalkeeper. I think a lot of people, there's been clips going around about him, and people have read out, statistics and all these kind of things. From the general consensus is he's a good young goalkeeper. And a lot of people are actually comparing him to like a young De Gea, which is big shoes to fill, in my opinion. I don't even want to put that kind of pressure on him, because De Gea ended up becoming, arguably, he's one of our best players for a number of years. He's our player of the year for a number of years, actually. But in terms of his play style, he is very much a shot stopper. He's very good with his feet. His save percentage is really high. His main thing is that he can keep the ball out of the net. And I think a lot of United fans, we've kind of been tarnished, or we've been a bit scarred by having a goalkeeper that's best attribute is passing. Whereas we really want our best attribute in our goalkeeper to be, can he keep the ball from going in the net? Can he stop goals? And I mean, the game this weekend against Arsenal, that's probably the reason why we didn't end up getting at least a draw, because we didn't have a goalkeeper that could stop the ball from fully going in the net. Now, like I mentioned before, that is one thing about Lammens that is one of his better attributes. And you look at the statistics, he's actually very, very high in all these kind of percentages. I'll read some of them out here. So he's in the 98th percentile for prevented goals. Now, if you don't know what that means, that basically means when you look at all the top goalkeepers across Europe, he's in the top 2%. So if you're in the 98th percentile, you're in the top 2% for that. So he's in the 98% percentile for prevented goals, 90th percentile for save percentage, and 89th% for passes completed. So he is also very, very good with that side of his game. But another one, which I think is very, very important, he's in the 99th percentile for crosses stopped. Now, that was literally the reason why we didn't get a point or even win the game against Arsenal the last weekend, because we didn't have a goalkeeper that could stop the ball from going in the net from a cross. And set pieces are big in football nowadays. Arsenal, half of their goals are literally coming from set pieces, and we struggled a lot last season from just literally being commanding in the box. And look, Ben Jacobs spoke about this as well today. And one of the things that he actually mentioned was the fact that one of the things that United like about this new goalkeeper is he's very brave in the 6-yard area. He knows when to come off his line, and he's loud and commanding, which is exactly what you need in a goalkeeper to stop crosses, stop these set pieces, kind of giving United a bit of a chance when it comes to playing against teams like Arsenal and all these other teams that are gonna try and pile in a load of crosses, load of corners, load of free kicks, and just put it in the box and cause a lot of mayhem. You need a goalkeeper who is gonna be that big figure in the box. But look, this is my opinion when it comes to Lammens. I do think he's a good goalkeeper, but one thing I will say is highlights genuinely can be very, very misleading when it comes to being a goalkeeper. Because at the end of the day, anyone can look good in net depending on the competition you're playing against. And I think, when Onana came in, I'm pretty sure a lot of people probably looked at his highlights and thought, oh, this is a good goalkeeper. Like, this is someone that we can bring into United, and he should be able to use his skills that he's already got and convert them and become a good Premier League goalkeeper. it really wasn't that simple. You know, I put up a tweet and I was like, look, if I played in goal against a bunch of 10-year-olds, I'll probably look like the best goalkeeper in the world. You know, my stats and percentages, I might be in the 100, I might be the 100% save percentage. My passes will be amazing. Like everything can look great when you're playing against competition that might not be as good as, you know, the competition you would be playing against if you went to a bigger club, for example, like United. So as good as I think this goalkeeper is, we really do have to kind of wait and see what he is going to be like when he comes to United, when he plays at Old Trafford. Because for me, the difference between levels in certain goalkeepers, it comes down to pressure. Can you do it when you're on the biggest stage? Can you do it when it's in the 90th minute and you 1-0 up or you're drawing, it's 1-1 and you're trying to save a point or you're trying to go for the win? Can you do it in those moments? Can you do it when it really matters? That's what separates the world-class elite, the top of the top best goalkeepers from just a good goalkeeper. Can you do it when the pressure's really on? And you will never really know that until you give them the chance to do it. Unfortunately for us, we've given Onana the chance and it didn't work out. That's just the reality. Same with Bayern there, we've given him the chance, it didn't work out. So for me, what I really want to see, yes, Lammens might have great position and he might be great on the ball. His passing might be amazing. His shot stopping might be amazing for Royal Antwerp. But let's see what it is at Old Trafford. So look, I want to see him come to the United because I feel like we genuinely do need a new goalkeeper. And I'd rather bring in a young keeper who at least we can see him develop. At least we can see him learn and learn on the job and kind of give him the opportunity to gain that experience. I'd rather see that than have a 27-year-old goalkeeper. He's probably not going to get any better, but still struggle for United. So look, I'm all in for bringing Lammens in. But let me know in the chat, what do you guys think? Do you want to bring in this new goalkeeper? I mean, look, the reports were that we might have to get rid of one of the two, whether it's Bayern or Onana. We might have to get rid of one of the two for it to work. And for us to be able to get him. So let me know. Do you think we should bring him in? And yeah, what are your opinions on the goalkeeper situation? Also, make sure you send in your super chats. The super chat that came in early before, I'm going to read it out. But send in your super chats because I'm about to go into the presser that Ruben Amorim just did on not Newcastle, the Fulham game. I said Newcastle because I think Newcastle playing Liverpool, and there actually is a watch along. I may as well just bring this in now before we move on. There is going to be a number of watch alongs on not just United stand, but for That's Football. The biggest one is going to be today later on at 7 p.m. Mark is going to do the watch-along for the Bundesliga. I know a lot of you probably saw the news going around the last couple of days about the huge exclusive deal that That's Football got with the Bundesliga, but today is the day. Today is the day that will be the first live watch-along, and it'll be between Bayern Munich and RB and Leipzig. Mark will be doing a watch-along. The game starts at 7:30, but the watch-along will start from 7 p.m. So make sure you go and check out That's Football. That's where the watch-along will be. But there will also be other watch-alongs throughout the next few days. Like I mentioned, the Liverpool and Newcastle big game. That'll be on Monday. Pretty sure. I need to double-check that actually. But on Monday, I'm pretty sure that game will be. And then also, Man City are playing Spurs, which is going to be a huge game. There'll be watch-along for that. And obviously the United game on the weekend against Fulham. That'll obviously be a watch along on the United stand. So make sure you're checking out both channels, United stand and That's Football, for all the extra content. But look, super chat here from DH says, people were ripping people were ripping no before he came. Lammens stats are there to see, not just highlights. You know what? Fair enough. I didn't necessarily see that, but you might have seen it. The internet's a big place, so you might have seen a lot of people ripping into him. But look, like I said before, the stats are there, the highlights are there, but like I said, stats and highlights, they can mean one thing, and when the keeper comes in or a player comes in, it could be completely different. So for me, I really just want to see what it looks like in person at Old Trafford in front of 75,000 fans, because that makes a big difference, you know what I mean? So one thing I will say is, I hope that United fan base will give him a chance if he comes in. I genuinely hope that we as a fan base will give him a chance, because that's one thing that, as a keeper, it is very, very difficult anyway. In fact, as a player, it's difficult to come to United. We've seen loads of players come in and struggle and end up leaving. But as a goalkeeper, 22, 23 years old, I can only imagine how difficult that can be to come in and pretty much have to compete for your place straight away. So I really do hope that even if he does come in and there are a few little mistakes here and there, the fan base actually does get behind him and give him a bit of support so we can at least see him work, because that's the whole point. We want to bring him in so he does work. And if he doesn't work straight away, he might work next season, but we have to actually get behind him. to give him that confidence. But look, another super chat in here from Tom Grant. Says, afternoon mods and chat, just watch some highlights on Lammens. He looks decent. Thoughts on our upcoming game? Same gameplay versus Arsenal equals a win. Yeah, I'm going to talk a little bit about that later on in the show after I go through the presser, because I agree. I think it is going to be difficult. I don't think Fulham's an easy team to play against, and we're away. So it's not going to be just a walk in the park. But there are a lot of highlights and a lot of positives from the Arsenal game, and I think if we can kind of keep that momentum, keep that same energy that we had in that game, we will have a very, very good chance of winning against Fulham. But yeah, good super chat. I agree. I do think he does look decent. And I mean, like I said before, hopefully we can see him come to United and play. But look, let's get into the press conference. So the first thing I actually want to talk about is related on goalkeepers anyway, because that was the first thing that he got asked. And, he got asked about Onana. Ruben Amorim got asked about Andre Onana, and he says, Onana is ready to play like last week, so we will see in the game who is going to be the goalkeeper. Leacher is out, News is out, the rest of the guys are fit. Now look, touching on the Onana thing, I actually thought it was very, very interesting when it came out that Onana was fit to play and he just picked by and there, because that to me just kind of proves that his trust on Onana is gone. Like, it is finished. Because usually, I mean, we saw it last season. There was a game, I think it was a Lyon game. Onana made a big mistake before that Lyon game, and in the press conference, he got asked whether or not Onana would play or if he would pick Bayandera or somebody else, and he said, "No, I'm picking Onana. He is my goalkeeper. I want him to play. I want him to start, and we should get behind him and give him more confidence so we can at least get the best out of him." It's looking like right now that's completely gone out the window, because if he had that same mentality, he would continue to start Onana regardless of how he's played. But the fact that Onana is ready to play, he's ready to play against Arsenal, he's going to be ready to play against Fulham, it kind of just shows that he really doesn't know who his number one goalkeeper is right now. He really does. In fact, it kind of shows that he thinks they're both on the same level, because let's be honest, Bayern might not even start. Onana might not start. Tom Heaton might end up starting. We don't know who's going to start, because there isn't a goalkeeper at the club right now that Amorim has confidence in. And it's very, very clear with the fact that he's just chopping and changing each week. And that's probably another reason why I want to get Lammens in, because at least then we know who should be starting. At least then we know, we brought in a new goalkeeper. That is our guy. That is our number one player to go and start in net. Right now, it feels like anyone can start. We really don't. We might end up bringing in an academy player to go and start because of how much confidence he has. But other than that, he says, Leach is out, News is out, which we all know those two players are out. But the rest of the guys are fit, which is amazing. We've been dying to have a fully fit squad for a long time. I can't remember the last time we actually had most of our players fit. Genuinely, we've had injuries for the last 2 years, so it's good to see that a lot of the players are fit. But moving on, he did also speak about the players who, the outgoings that we have, and there's so much conversation about these outgoings. When are they going to go? That's the conversation. When are they going to go? They're supposed to be outgoings, but none of them are going out. They're still here training by themselves. But look, Ruben Amorim did say it's not an idea. It's not an idea that these guys are going to leave to play in a different club, and then we will receive another player. We don't know what is going to happen, but we're not waiting to take out someone to get another. I think the players you're talking about are not with this group at the moment. So look, I think it's clear to say that. I mean, because from watching, I watched the press conference, and from watching it, his point pretty much was that it has nothing to do with the players that are here. The players that are already at the club, the players that are training together, it has nothing to do with them. So the Antonys, the Garnachos, who else is even on that list? Sancho, Malacia, those guys that are pretty much waiting to leave and everyone's kind of waiting for them to go out, that has nothing to do with the players that are already here. So it's not a case of, we need to sell, I don't know, Hojlund, or we need to sell this person, we need to sell that person to get the, you know what I mean? It's got nothing to do. They don't go hand in hand. He's pretty much saying that it's an isolated situation. Those players can leave whenever they want. The offers are there. There's been offers for Sancho to go to Roma. There's been offers for Garnacho to go to Chelsea. There's been offers for Anthony to go to Betis. It's all about, can we get these deals over the line in the next 2 weeks, and then we can finally see these players going out. But one thing that he did say, and I'm not sure there is a quote in it, but I'm going to bring it up anyway. One thing that he did say was, in terms of players going, actually no, I've got the exact quote. I'll try and bring it in later in it if I can remember the exact quote that he said. But I thought it was really, really interesting. But look, moving on. He spoke about Hojlund, and I think this is another big conversation actually about Hojlund and his future, because there were actually some reports that came out earlier from Fabrizio, and Fabrizio did say Napoli are set to send a contract proposal to Rasmus Hojlund as talks with Manchester United are proceeding. The decision is up to Hojlund, with contract terms set to be discussed from today, as several clubs are interested in him. And so, Amorim was asked on Hojlund, and he says, like a professional player, how did he react to being dropped? Oh, so he was asked on how did he react to being dropped, and Amorim says, like a professional player. We need to see. Let's wait and see when the market closes, and then everything will be clear. That actually just triggered exactly what I was thinking about before. So Amorim did speak about what would happen if the window closes, and he says, he pretty much says, right now the window's still open, so anything can happen. Pretty much just wait and see, anything can happen. But when the window closes, it's a different conversation. When the window closes, in my opinion, there might be a chance that some of these players might get reintegrated into the team, because Amorim wasn't saying that no, those players, they're going to sit on the bench or they're going to sit in the reserves with the under-23s, under 21s, whatever it is, and just play with them. No, he said, look, we don't know what's going to happen when the window closes. We'll see. Anything can happen when the window finally ends at the end of August or start of September, and these players are still here. Anything can happen. So you might end up seeing a Sancho or an Anthony, most likely Anthony out of all the players, or Garnacho being brought back into this team, because he didn't completely close it off. He didn't say, no, those players will never be part of my plans. Those players will never be here. He didn't say that. He said, we will see. We don't know what's going to happen. Anything can happen. So I think it will be interesting to see if those players don't end up leaving, where or if they will be brought back into the team. But also with Hojlund, I've always said, I think Hojlund is best option, in my opinion, is to go out on loan. Go out on loan to another team, preferably a different league, but it's a little bit easier, maybe a bit slower, a little bit less, well, not a little bit, it'll be a lot less pressure if you go to another club, unless you're going to Real Madrid, but there'll be a lot less pressure. Go to another club, like I said, another league, and just go and play football. Go and express yourself. Go back to where you was before you came to United, or after that first season at United. Go back to that mentality. Go back to that level of confidence, and go and play some good football. Go and express yourself, like I said. And I think that'll be the best thing for him, because right now he can't get into the squad. Not even into the starting 11. He can't get into the squad. There's about 4 players, maybe even 5 players that I'd start in that number 9 position before him. I mean, you've got Sesko, obviously. You've got Xerxes. Those are 2 players who are actually strikers. Then you've got Cunha and Bumo, 2 10s who could probably play in that position as well. Then we saw Mount play there recently, just in the Arsenal game, and have an amazing game. And you still got Bruno, who I think could probably play in that false 9 as well. So there's a number of players that can play in that number 9, that striker position, whether it's as a false 9 or as an out-and-out 9, above Hojlund. He's not going to get that much opportunities to go and play. And I'm not even mentioning Chido. I'm not saying that Chido should be coming into the team or whatever, but let's be honest, at the end of last season, a lot of people were saying Chido should start over Hojlund. A lot of people were saying that. So look, if I'm Hojlund, go out, play some football, go out on loan. Go and get to actually step on the pitch and show people what you can do. And if you play well, you're on loan, you can come back. You can come back and you can be reintegrated into the team. But as of right now, unless you want to sit on the bench and kind of just almost rot away, you kind of just wasting your time. Sorry, the charger fell out. Let me just put the charger back in. But let me go back into some other quotes that Amorim had. And let me also send me your super chats. Let me know all of the things that you have to say about what's going on. But there are some more quotes. Amorim spoke on the game about Fulham. He said, I think it's always hard to play against Fulham. They have a clear identity. Marco Silva is really smart, and they are really comfortable because they have experience and understand the league. It'll be a tough match, but every game in the schedule is tough to play. And look, I 100% agree. I think Fulham one of those teams that I don't think you even want to play them. They're one of those teams, especially away, Craven Cottage. It's one of them small, intimate grounds. The fan base is right on you. It is going to be a difficult game, and we have actually got away with a few results here and there. It's usually very close games, like 1-0s, 1-1s, 2-1s, them kind of results. And like you said, they have experience. They have Premier League experience. They're not a team that's just come up, like a Sunderland or Leeds just came up, but they've been in the Premier League before. But Burnley just came up again. They've been in the Premier League before as well. But they're a team that's been here for a while, and I think it will be a difficult game. But I mean, one of the super chats before, I think it was from Tom Grant, says, look, if we play the same way we played against Arsenal, I think we'll have a good chance. And I agree. I think the tactics that we use against Arsenal, the way we played out from the back, we used, the Ligt as almost like a second, or he kind of stepped into that midfield as like an inverted, I know they call it inverted centre-backs. I don't actually know what that means, but I'm going to call it an inverted centre-back, where that centre-back kind of steps into the midfield and he becomes one of the other midfielders or one of the sixes. But the way we did that to kind of work out of Arsenal's press, we have a very, very high press and a very strong press, but we managed to play out of it. I think that was very, very good. And if we can do that against other teams, we might get a bit more joy. And then all it takes is for our attacking players to kind of just put the ball in the net. That's the last kind of goal. We can get it to Mbeumo a lot. We can get it to Cunha a lot, get it to Sesko a lot, get these guys to put the ball in the net, and we're going to have a lot of joy. So I think it could be a very good match, but it will not be easy. I don't think it will be easy. But look, some more quotes from Amorim that I'm going to read out. He spoke on defending set pieces. I mean, that's kind of been the narrative of United for a long time. Can we defend some set pieces? And Amorim says, we need to try to analyse the opponent and put the best setup to protect the goal in set pieces. We do it all the time, and we will not change because of the last goal. We need to do the same thing to the opponent. Now look, I agree. Naturally, you always have to just set up the best way against whoever you're playing. At the end of the day, every team's different. So there's no point trying to set up the exact same way against every single team, because some teams might be better at set pieces, some teams might have taller players, players that are better at heading, some teams might have smaller players, some teams might like to in swing, some teams like to do more out swingers. You got to try and kind of adapt to the team you're playing against. But one thing I will say is, I watched that goal against Arsenal, the Bayern mistake pretty much. One thing I noticed was, yes, everyone says that it might have been a foul on Bayern and Saliba was kind of impeding him a little bit. But if you look at who's marking him, we had Mason Mount guarding Saliba on a corner. That to me makes no sense. Now, I know we have other players that might have to, De Ligt might have been on Gabriel or whatnot, or we might have Casemiro on somebody else. But to put Mason Mount on Saliba, who is one of their better, or bigger threats in the box, made no sense, because Saliba absolutely bullied him. He pretty much pushed him or walked him towards Bayern, which caused the distraction, which caused the mayhem, which ended up meaning that Bayern made a mistake in the box. To me, that was just wrong. That was just a wrong. That was a tactical error. You're not going to put Mason Mount, who, in my opinion, isn't necessarily the strongest player or the best defender at set pieces, on arguably one of Arsenal's best players at set pieces. Because as we saw, all it took was Saliba, who's a stronger player, to pretty much move Mason Mount out of the way, and all of a sudden now he's a problem in the box, and it resulted in a goal. So for me, looking at what Amorim says when he says we will not change because of the last goal, I agree. Look, you don't just change because of one goal, but at the same time, look at the mistakes you made. Look at the mistakes that you made in terms of personnel, who's on who's marking who's in what position. Look at the mistakes you made and at least adapt from it. Because if I see Mason Mount marking, I don't know who Fulham's best, our biggest threat is, but if I see him doing that again, and they go and score, it's like, well, why don't you adapt? Why don't you see the problem? Why don't you correct your mistake? And you would have prevented another goal. So hopefully we can actually learn from it and change anything that could potentially cause another mistake. But anyway, look, moving on once again. He spoke about Mainoo. Now, a lot of you guys know I'm Mainoo's biggest fan, and I'll openly say it. People say it's Player FC. I don't care. I've never cared. I'm a fan of this guy, and I want to see him do well. I want to see our academy players, Manchester born. I'm Manchester born as well, so I want to see our academy players do well. Someone actually mentioned as well, he was on the back post. Another good comment there. Whoever said that he was on the back post. That's literally what I said during the game, because someone said, there's not really much he could have done about it. I said, well, he was guarding the back post. Calafiori had a pretty empty header on the back post. He was there, because if we had a player there, it would have been a lot more difficult. Not to say that we would have completely prevented the goal, but it would have made it a lot more difficult. He was on the back post. Another tactical error, in my opinion. So we do need to adapt. It's not as simple as just saying, we're not going to change, we're going to do the same thing. No, you look at what went wrong and you figure out solutions. I feel that's just how life works. You know what I mean? But moving on, he got asked about Mainoo, which has been a conversation for a while. And they pretty much asked him about Mainoo's contract. And he says that part is with Jason, obviously Jason Wilcox. He is our player. He has a contract. I didn't hear any news about it. Now, there were some more quotes where he spoke about Mainoo, and he spoke about how for young players, there are phases throughout the season. It's not just as simple as you're not starting now, so you will never start another game. He mentioned the term phases and how young players almost have to. He didn't use this term. He didn't use this phrase specifically, but kind of like wait their turn, pretty much. You have to kind of look at how the season's going. There's multiple games going on. You're playing one, sometimes 2 games a week. Like next week, we're playing 2 games. Unfortunately, we're not in Europe, so we're not playing that many games. But you have to kind of understand your position, your role in the team, and you will get your opportunity. So look, I think there is a lot of. In fact, no, look, I found a quote here actually. He says, we have some issues, but we play with 2 midfielders, and sometimes it's different. It's a different way of playing. We and they have to understand, especially young players, that there are spaces in the season. This is normal with a lot of games. Things are going to change, but he's there. He's fighting, he's training, and he's one more option for us to win games. Now, that does put a little bit more confidence in the fact that I do think Mainoo will get some opportunities. But the way I want to look at it is, if our midfield isn't working and we're still not seeing Mainoo on the pitch, what are we waiting for? Like, what is the trigger? What's going to make Amorim actually think, okay, maybe we do need to put Mainoo in that midfield, because we've seen a partnership of Bruno and Casemiro not necessarily work, or we've seen Bruno and Ugarte not work, or we've seen Casemiro and Ugarte not work, or we've seen, we keep on seeing these players, come on the pitch and maybe not necessarily have good performances, but then Mainoo's just on the bench for 90 minutes. And it's like, at what point do we just think, okay, maybe Mainoo is one of our guys that has to be in that midfield for it to work? And that's what I want to see. Me personally, I want to see Mainoo, because I think he's genuinely one of our best midfielders, especially on the ball. And to see that Arsenal game, us being 1-0 down for most of the game, since the 13th minute we're 1-0 down, we're almost chasing a goal as the game goes on, and he brings on Ugarte. And it's like, you're chasing a goal. We've seen Mainoo score some spectacular goals in his very short United career, in 2 years. Spectacular goals. I mean, he literally was a big reason why we even got to the Europa League final, if you remember the Lyon game. And you bring on Ugarte. It's like, why? Like, what are you trying to defend? Are you trying to defend Arsenal's lead? You know what I mean? Like, I'd understand if we were 1-0 up and it's like, let's bring on someone who's going to shut up shop and get around the pitch and a lot of tackles and interceptions. So that reason you might go and bring on Ugarte, because that's what he's very, very good at. But we're chasing a goal. We're chasing a loss right now. If the game stays how it is, we're going to lose. Why not bring on the player, the midfielder, that you've seen score goals late on in games and is very, very good at finishing? In fact, he's so good, his best position is probably even in the 10 role rather than being a midfield role. But he didn't do it. So it's like, what is his real opinion on Mainoo? Does he think he's a player that can handle these kind of situations? I don't know. But I want to see Mainoo play more. That's my thing. I just want to see Mainoo play more. But look, moving on. He spoke a little bit about Mason Mount and Luke Shaw. Interesting. Two players which very, very mixed opinion. Very, very mixed opinion of a lot of people on more so on Luke Shaw though. I think a lot of people are more so mixed on whether or not Luke Shaw should probably even still be starting for United after his 10-year career. In fact, he came in 2014. We're almost in 2026. It's almost been 12 years that he's been here. Let me read out what he said about Mason Mount and Luke Shaw. He says, more importantly, he's referring to England. So he says, more important is for them to help Man United reach their goals, compared to England. Then they are very, very players. The quote's a bit a bit iffy, but he says they are experienced and have played a lot of matches. Mason Mount won the Champions League, and Luke Shaw, I've already said, when he's fit, is a very special player, and you can see it every time he plays. So it's really important for us to have these two guys available for more games. And you know what? As much as I get onto Luke Shaw, and I actually like Mason Mount quite a bit, but I do get onto Luke Shaw a lot, so I can admit that. One thing I would never deny is that he can play football. Yeah, he is a good player. And I think for me and a lot of other fans that I speak to as well, the frustration is, are we going to see it for consecutive, like consistent amount of time, but also consecutive games? And also, is he going to prioritise United over England? You know what I mean? Like, is he going to do what he did last season and, you know, be injured for most of the season? And when it's time to show up for the Euros, all of a sudden he's perfectly fine, perfectly fit. You know, he's good enough to play in the final, you know, good enough to go and play for England. And obviously they're not losing, but he's good enough to go and play for them. And then all of a sudden, he's back being injured again. Like, for me, I want to see you take priority over United. Just for once. Just take priority over United and let me see you play a run of games where you're putting in very, very good performances. Then I can be like, you know what? Luke Shaw's back. Luke Shaw is back for United, and he is here to actually put in some good performances and be our starting player. But for a player he's been there for, like I mentioned, 12 years, and I can't give you 2 seasons in a row where he's been a top player for us, that's a problem. That's a problem. We've seen Shaw have one great season, you know, but then it's like the next season almost is back to just, you know, being on the physio, you know, being in the physio room or whatever it is. So, look, I want to see Luke Shaw just play a number of games where he's putting in good performances with no injuries. And the same with Mason Mount. I don't necessarily think Mason Mount should even start every single game, but there are games here and there which he can start and put in good performances. Let's see that again. Let's see him do what he did against Arsenal, you know, in whatever the next game he starts, let's see him do that again, over and over and over again. And then I can fully back and trust these players that they're not going to go and, you know, pick up another injury, or not going to sit on the sideline, or not going to chop some more stinkers, and they can, you know, be part of the starting 11 or be part of this team going forward. Because if not, then it's like, why are we keeping them? You know, why are we keeping these guys? And we talk about money all the time and wages. These are 2 of our highest paid players. You know, I don't know the exact numbers, but they are 2 of our highest paid players. So let's see them do it consistently, like I said, over a number of games. But look, only a couple more quotes that I'm going to bring up. The last one is when Ruben Amorim spoke on improvement, and he said, we are better, but also because we have different characteristics and we can change that during the game. We have more options, and you can see, this laptop just died. But he spoke about improvements, and he spoke about Sesko and Cunha, and also obviously Mbeumo. And look, I want to even touch on even Sesko, because look, going into the Fulham game, the conversation really that I've heard the most is Sesko going to start? Is Sesko going to start? I mean, let me know in the comments, do you think Sesko will start against Fulham? In fact, I've got the quote on here, I'm going to read it. So he says, we are better, but also because we have different characteristics and we can change that during the game. We have more options, and you can see, we play a different style with Cunha, for example. And then in the end with Sesko, because he is different, he's a different player that we can use. We're improving in that department also, and we are creating more chances. So we are ready for any kind of game. The biggest improvement we've had versus Arsenal was we didn't lose a ball so many times in the build-up. That was really good also for our team. And you know what? I like that. In fact, I love that quote, because one thing about that I've always been a bit critical when it comes to Amorim is he actually, I mean, I spoke about it earlier in the show, is he actually seeing the problems that are going on the pitch? Because it almost feels like we're doing the same thing over and over again and it's not working. We're doing we're making the same mistakes, we're playing the same players in the same positions, and those same players are making the same mistakes. Are we actually improving game on game? And as you can see from the quote, he's seeing that there was a time where we was losing the ball a lot in the build-up, and it was very, very clear to see. I think everybody saw that we couldn't play out from the back at all. We were forcing that long ball. Onana was having to play that long ball over and over again, whether it was to, I don't know, Garnacho, or whether it was to Rashford, or whoever it was. We had to force the long ball because playing at the back, we were struggling. And in the Arsenal game, again, I mentioned it earlier in the show, we improved a lot. And having De Ligt as that, I mentioned before, that inverted centre-back, where he kind of stepped into the midfield and he kind of used him as that kind of bounce pass player where, you know, Bayern there will give to De Ligt and De Ligt will play it out to Euro, or he'll play it out to Luke Shaw, and you create them triangles in the defence where we can actually play out and kind of overload the ball a little bit more in the defence so we can play out a bit more smoother, you know, and we did that very, very well, like I mentioned, against a very, very good press. And that's a big, big improvement, which I think if we can continue to build on that with the players that we have, especially when, you know, eventually we get Martinez back, we get Mazraoui back, we've got a bit more options in that defence. We're going to play out a lot stronger, and look, that's going to affect the rest of the pitch, because the better we play out, the better we can get to our midfield, the better we can get on the ball and work it through transition into the attack, and hopefully we can create more chances. So look, it all works hand in hand, and I'm just happy that Amorim has noticed that, and we're actually seeing improvements going into the Fulham game. So look, there will be a road trip. I'm going to record a road trip, and there will be a road trip on Sunday morning, so look out for that, where I'm going to discuss fully the Fulham game, all my opinions on how that's going to go, predictions and all that kind of stuff, who I think is going to play, predicted 11s, all that kind of stuff. So make sure you're looking out for that. But like I mentioned before, 7 p.m, write it down. It's live. It's live. The Bundesliga. Mark will be live streaming, doing a watch along for the Bundesliga, Bayern Munich versus RB Leipzig on That's Football. I'm sure the link will be in the description. So click the link, go and subscribe. Make sure you're there. 7 p.m. Huge game in the Bundesliga anyway, but it's just huge anyway in football. In the footballing world, it's a huge thing that a creator, a YouTuber creator, is live streaming an actual game. I know, it doesn't even make sense. We've never seen this before. So make sure you go and check that out. Make sure you go and support Mark in that watch along. And like I said, there's a whole bunch of watch alongs going out throughout the week. There's obviously the United one on Sunday, Liverpool game against against Newcastle, City are playing Spurs, then the Arsenal game as well. So all of that will be on That's Football. So make sure you go and subscribing over there. Yeah, that's it for me. That's it for me. Thank you guys for listening. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.